The first story. I always loved the idea of camping deep in the forest, surrounded by nothing but the sounds of nature. So, when my friends suggested a weekend hiking trip, I jumped at the chance. Little did I know, it would turn into a nightmare I couldn't escape. The forest seemed welcoming at first, with its lush green canopy and the smell of earth after a rain. We set up camp near a babbling brook, feeling at peace with the world as we roasted marshmallows over the crackling fire. But as night fell, the atmosphere shifted. The trees seemed to close in around us, casting long, twisted shadows that danced in the firelight. And then, the noises started. At first, it was just the usual sounds of the forest, rustling leaves, the hoot of an owl in the distance. But then came something else, something sinister and unexplainable. It started with faint whispers on the edge of hearing, voices that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. I tried to laugh it off, blaming it on the wind or our overactive imaginations. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. And then, things got even worse. As we huddled together in our tents, the whispers grew louder, morphing into distinct words that sent shivers down my spine. It was as if the forest itself was speaking to us, its voice cold and otherworldly. I wanted to run, to get as far away from that place as possible. But fear held me rooted to the spot, paralyzing me with its icy grip. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, they did. In the dead of night, I awoke to the sound of footsteps outside our tent. At first, I thought it was just one of my friends stumbling back from a late-night bathroom break. But when I peeked outside, I saw nothing but darkness staring back at me. That's when I knew we weren't alone out there. Whatever lurked in the depths of the forest was watching us, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. With the first light of dawn, we packed up our camp and fled, not daring to look back. And though we made it out of the forest alive, a part of me will always remain trapped in those dark woods, haunted by the whispers of something that should never have existed. As we stumbled out of the forest, our hearts racing with fear and adrenaline, we vowed never to return to that cursed place again. But as the days passed, I found myself unable to shake the feeling that something had followed us out of the woods. Strange occurrences plagued my dreams, nightmares filled with shadowy figures and disembodied whispers. And in the waking world, I couldn't shake the sensation of being watched, of unseen eyes boring into my soul wherever I went. I tried to convince myself that it was just my imagination running wild, that there was a logical explanation for everything that had happened in the forest. But deep down, I knew the truth. We had stumbled into something ancient and malevolent, something beyond our understanding. I tried to go about my daily life as if nothing had changed, but the memory of that night haunted me at every turn. I found myself avoiding the outdoors, afraid of what might be lurking in the shadows just beyond the safety of civilization. And then, one night, as I lay awake in bed, I heard it, the whispers, faint at first but growing louder with each passing moment. They seemed to be coming from everywhere at once, filling the room with their chilling presence. I tried to block them out, to convince myself that I was imagining things. But then, I felt a cold breath against my neck, and I knew that whatever had haunted us in the forest had followed me home. With a scream, I leapt out of bed and fled into the night, not stopping until I was far away from that accursed place. And though I never returned to the forest, the memory of that night still haunts me, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurks just beyond the edge of our reality. The second story. There's something about the forest that has always drawn me in, the way the sunlight filters through the trees, the sound of leaves crunching underfoot, the feeling of being surrounded by nature's embrace. But what happened on that camping trip? It shattered my love for the wilderness forever. It started out like any other adventure. A group of us set out on a weekend hiking trip, eager to escape the hustle and bustle of city life. The forest welcomed us with open arms, its ancient trees swaying gently in the breeze. As night fell, we made camp by the edge of a serene lake, the water reflecting the starry sky above. We laughed and joked around the campfire, the warmth of the flames driving away the chill of the night. But then, as the fire died down and darkness settled over the forest, a sense of unease crept over me. It was as if the very air had grown thick with tension, as if we were being watched by something unseen. I tried to shake off the feeling, to convince myself that it was just my imagination running wild. But then, I heard it, the sound of footsteps crunching through the underbrush, too heavy to belong to any forest creature I knew. I glanced around at my friends, but they seemed oblivious to the growing sense of dread that gripped me. With a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach, I realized that whatever was out there, it was coming closer. I wanted to scream, to run as far away from that place as my legs could carry me. But fear held me rooted to the spot, paralyzing me with its icy touch. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, they did. From the darkness emerged a figure, its features obscured by shadows. It moved with an unnatural grace, gliding silently towards us like a wraith in the night. I tried to call out a warning to my friends, but my voice caught in my throat. I could only watch in horror as the figure drew closer, its presence filling me with a sense of primal terror I had never known before. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure vanished into the night, leaving us alone once more with our fear. We fled from the forest at first light, never looking back. But even now, years later, I can still feel the weight of those haunted woods pressing down on me, their secrets lurking just beyond the edge of my memory. In the days that followed our harrowing escape from the forest, I tried to convince myself that it was all just a trick of the mind, a figment of my imagination fueled by the darkness and isolation of the wilderness. But deep down, I knew the truth. Something unnatural lurked in those woods, something that defied explanation. Sleep eluded me in the nights that followed, haunted by visions of shadowy figures and echoing whispers that seemed to follow me wherever I went. I became paranoid, jumping at the slightest rustle of leaves or creak of a floorboard, convinced that whatever had stalked us in the forest was still out there, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. My friends tried to reassure me, chalking it all up to a shared delusion brought on by fear and exhaustion. But I could see the doubt in their eyes, the lingering unease that lingered between us like a dark cloud. And then, one night, as I lay awake in bed, I heard it again, the whispers, faint at first but growing louder with each passing moment. They seemed to be calling to me, urging me to return to the forest, to face whatever lurked in its shadowy depths. With a sense of dread gnawing at my insides, I slipped out of bed and made my way to the window, the darkness outside pressing in on me from all sides. And there, illuminated by the faint glow of the moon, I saw it, a figure standing at the edge of the woods, its eyes burning with an otherworldly light. I wanted to scream, to flee from that place and never look back. But something held me rooted to the spot, an inexplicable pull drawing me towards the forest despite my overwhelming fear. With trembling hands, I gathered my things and set out into the night, the whispers growing louder with each step I took. And as I disappeared into the darkness of the trees, I knew that I was heading towards a fate from which there would be no escape. As I ventured deeper into the forest, the air grew thick with an oppressive silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or snap of a twig underfoot. The moon cast eerie shadows across the forest floor, twisting the trees into grotesque shapes that seemed to loom over me like silent sentinels. I tried to push aside the overwhelming sense of dread that threatened to consume me, focusing instead on the path ahead. But with each step I took, the whispers grew louder, filling my mind with their haunting refrain. I stumbled through the darkness, my heart pounding in my chest as I struggled to make sense of the surreal landscape that surrounded me. Shadows danced at the edge of my vision, flitting in and out of existence like specters from another realm. And then, just when I thought I could bear it no longer, I stumbled upon a clearing bathed in moonlight. At its center stood a gnarled old tree, its twisted branches reaching up towards the sky like skeletal fingers. But it was what lay beneath the tree that stopped me in my tracks, a shallow grave, freshly dug and still stained with the blood of its unfortunate occupant. My stomach churned at the sight, and I felt bile rise in my throat as the full horror of what had happened in this cursed place washed over me. I wanted to turn and run, to escape from this nightmare and never look back. But something compelled me to stay, to uncover the truth behind the darkness that had consumed this forest. With trembling hands, I reached out and began to dig, the earth yielding reluctantly to my efforts. And as I uncovered the remains buried beneath the soil, I felt a chill run down my spine, a chill that had nothing to do with the cool night air. For there, lying before me, was the twisted, mangled corpse of the figure that had haunted my dreams since that fateful night in the forest. Its eyes stared back at me with a hollow emptiness, a silent testament to the horrors that lurked within these woods. And as I gazed upon its lifeless form, I knew that I had stumbled upon something far more sinister than I could have ever imagined, a truth that would haunt me until the end of my days. As I stood there in the clearing, surrounded by death and darkness, I knew that I had to leave this place behind. With a heavy heart and a newfound resolve, I covered the grave once more, burying the horrors of the forest along with it. As I made my way back through the twisted trees, the whispers faded into the distance, replaced by the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant call of a night bird. The forest seemed to sigh with relief as I emerged into the light of dawn, its secrets safely hidden once more. But as I walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had only scratched the surface of the darkness that lurked within those haunted woods. And though I knew I could never erase the memories of what had happened there, I vowed to carry on with my life, haunted but not defeated by the horrors I had witnessed. And as I left the forest behind, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, as if a burden I had been carrying for far too long had finally been lifted. For though the darkness may linger in the depths of the woods, I knew that I had emerged from it stronger than before, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And so, with one last glance over my shoulder, I stepped out into the light of a new day, leaving the horrors of the forest behind me forever. The third story. The forest stretched out before me like a sea of shadows, its ancient trees standing sentinel over a world untouched by time. It was a place of beauty and mystery, but as I would soon discover, it was also a place of darkness and dread. My friends and I had set out on a camping trip, eager to explore the wilderness and escape the stresses of everyday life. But as we ventured deeper into the forest, a sense of unease began to settle over us like a heavy blanket. The trees seemed to close in around us, their twisted branches reaching out like gnarled fingers grasping for our souls. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the only sounds were the distant cries of nocturnal creatures and the rustle of leaves in the breeze. As night fell, we made camp in a small clearing, the fire casting long shadows that danced across the forest floor. But no matter how brightly the flames burned, they could not drive away the darkness that lurked just beyond the edge of our campsite. I tried to shake off the feeling of dread that gripped me, telling myself that it was just my imagination running wild. But then, as we sat around the fire, swapping stories and laughter, a chill wind swept through the clearing, extinguishing the flames in an instant. In the darkness that followed, we heard it, the sound of footsteps echoing through the trees, heavy and deliberate. My heart pounded in my chest as I scanned the darkness, but I could see nothing but shadows shifting in the night. With a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach, I realized that we were not alone in the forest, that something sinister lurked just beyond the reach of our senses. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the presence was gone, leaving us alone in the darkness once more. But the memory of that night would haunt me for years to come, a reminder of the darkness that lurked within the heart of the forest. As the night wore on, a sense of unease settled over our camp like a heavy fog. We huddled together, seeking solace in each other's presence, but the darkness seemed to press in on us from all sides, suffocating and relentless. With every snap of a twig and every rustle of leaves, our nerves were stretched to their breaking point. We knew we were being watched, but by what, we dared not speculate. As the hours passed, exhaustion began to weigh heavily upon us, but sleep remained elusive, chased away by the specter of fear that hung over our camp like a shroud. We took turns standing guard, casting anxious glances into the surrounding darkness, half expecting to see something emerge from the shadows at any moment. And then, just as the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, it happened. A blood-curdling scream shattered the stillness of the forest, echoing through the trees like a death knell. We sprang into action, scrambling to our feet and grabbing whatever makeshift weapons we could find. But when we reached the source of the scream, all we found was an empty tent, its entrance flapping in the breeze like a mocking tongue. Panic surged through me like a tidal wave as I realized that one of us was missing. We called out their name, our voices trembling with fear, but there was no answer, only the oppressive silence of the forest. With a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach, I knew that we had to find them, no matter the cost. And so, with hearts heavy with dread, we set out into the wilderness once more, praying that we were not already too late. But as we plunged deeper into the heart of the forest, the shadows seemed to grow darker, the trees closing in around us like malevolent specters. And with each passing moment, the sense of foreboding that hung over us like a pall only grew stronger, until it felt as though we were walking straight into the jaws of death itself. What do you think? Ready for the next part? As we pressed on through the tangled underbrush, our hearts heavy with dread, we stumbled upon a clearing bathed in an eerie, unnatural light. In the center stood a figure, cloaked in shadows and emanating a palpable aura of malevolence. With a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach, I realized that this was the source of the darkness that had plagued us throughout the night. It had been watching us, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But before it could make its move, a piercing scream shattered the stillness of the forest once more. This time, it was followed by the sound of crashing footsteps as our missing friend burst through the undergrowth, their face twisted in terror. With a sense of relief flooding through me, I rushed to their side, my friends close behind. They babbled incoherently, their words tumbling out in a rush as they recounted their harrowing ordeal. They had wandered off in the darkness, drawn by an unseen force deeper into the heart of the forest. But as they had ventured further from the safety of our camp, they had stumbled upon something unspeakable, a grotesque, otherworldly creature that lurked in the shadows, its eyes burning with an insatiable hunger. With a shudder, I realized that we had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death. But as we stood there, battered and bruised but alive, I knew that our ordeal was far from over. For as long as that creature lurked in the darkness of the forest, no one would be safe. And though we had survived this night, I knew that there would be others who would not be so lucky. With a heavy heart, I turned and led my friends away from that cursed place, vowing never to return. But even as we disappeared into the safety of the daylight, I couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness of the forest would haunt us forever. How did you find the ending? Did it wrap up the story nicely for you? I hope you like this 3 stories. If you want more stories like that, please subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends.